Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. And I would like to ask our clerk, Jessie Clark, to please call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Lamstead, are you present?
I am present.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Braybrook?
Present.
Councillor Cadigan?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
For staff, Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Bianca Dragicevic, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Amber Novak, Legislative Coordinator, Executive Assistant to the CAO.
Present.
And Jessie Clark, Director of Corporate Services Clerk, is present.
Okay, thank you very much. We will move on to item 1.3 of our agenda, which is land acknowledgement and moment of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge the Trent Lakes in Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nation, which include Alderville, Beausoleil, Curve Lake, Georgina Island, Hiawatha, Rama, and Scugog Island First Nation. Trent Lake respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Okay, thank you very much. We will move on to item 2 of our agenda, which is the disclosure of pecuniary interest. If anyone on council has an interest in an item on the agenda, please disclose it now or anytime during the meeting prior to discussing anything you have a pecuniary interest in. Seeing no hands, we can move on to item 3 of our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda as circulated. I would entertain a motion for that. I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a move. Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 4 of our agenda, which is delegations. We can move on to item 4.1. Janet Clarkson, would you please come up and make your delegation? I would say state your name for the record, but I think we know who you are.
Maybe that's good and maybe it's bad.
Proud to say that you were mayor of this municipality. Go ahead, Jen.
Well, it's an unusual position to be in. I have with me 3 people who have a lot more probably to add to this meeting than what I'm going to have. So I will turn them over after I've made the initial meeting. This concerns, of course, the old school up in Deer Bay. I'm hoping that we have a recognition of the importance of some historical aspects in this municipality. We've not been good at this. So I'm asking the municipalities keep the building and do necessary repairs to make it usable. And I know there's been debate in terms of how much those repairs can cost. And I think it ranges from something that's pretty extravagant to something that's more realistic. And I think the mayor and myself and trying to think of anybody. I think Peter, you were at the preliminary meeting, and I think the discussion at that time was there were things built into that assessment that may or may not be necessary. It is needed for the storing and documentation of historical documents. They are presently scattered far and wide all over this municipality. Start to build a small museum. That is not my ask for the township to do. But once the process was started, then the committee that will actually be volunteering and whatever to do this would then go about the business of determining what that building is going to look like. Explore the moving of the Stockdale original homestead, normally known as the Sugar Shack. Now, where Stockdale's is, as pretty much everybody knows, everybody sort of calls it the Anne of Green Gables house. But the Sugar Shack was the original homestead. And when they built that home, they moved it down to where it is now down on Shaw's Road. It's in pretty good shape. It's squared off timbers. It's on a cement base. Has a hole in the roof where they used it for evaporation when they did the whatever. I tried to get in and get some pictures, but right now the land is rented to a farmer who has a bull on there. And nobody wants to go. There's enough bull around here. Sorry about that. But we will get more accurate, but there are people who can move that building quite nicely. And it would be a lovely addition to the museum to be able to actually have something that's historically correct. Stockdale family is a very old family, so it has really good roots. Connect with Community Gardens and Tekasi Ranch. They're interested in using the gardens that they do, which is right kind of across the road, and introduce that into there so that it could be, one of them could help with the other. And they're interested in helping with the museum part of it as well. Fund this building the same as the libraries and community centers and everybody else are funded. It is a building that belongs to the community. And I'm not suggesting the Historical Society is totally independent, but it should not be totally independent any more than what the Tourist Information Center is. From my conversations with Rachel Stark, and I'm surprised she's not here, she said tourism is the largest growing economic driver in not only the province of Ontario, but also in Canada. Because now with people looking up their heritages and everything, people want to know what their roots are, and they're coming back. In closing, recognize the importance of acknowledging and storing our historical legacy. We are behind the times in this field. For instance, the Greater Historical Society in Galway is not properly funded either. Barb is going to be speaking to this. However, their charter will allow us to smoothly add the Deer Bay facility into that umbrella without having to go about the business of opening up a new charter. Pam Dickey, who lives in Buckhorn, will be part of the future development of this site, and she's been long-term involvement in Galway. We have an agreement in principle from the Buckhorn and Area Lions to help where possible. This is an opportunity we should not miss. It is one of the fastest tourist initiatives which I've spoken to. Going back, and I guess that's maybe when you get to be 80 years old, that's what you do. But 50 years ago, when the proposal came up to close the Buckhorn School and build a new school in Lakefield, we fought like crazy to get a school in Buckhorn. We got the school in Buckhorn. The same fight at that time was there by the council to sell the old school. If that had happened, we would not have a library. We would not have a good buy room. So the decisions, financial decisions of the moment, are much easier to take than the vision of the future. Our job, as myself, people call me today a community activist, they can call me whatever they like, but my job and the job of our elected officials is visionary. The taxpayers and whatever produce the money and expecting us to be good shepherds of not only the money to run the municipality, but have a vision to what this municipality can look like in the future and how it values its past. Because as we're finding all the way around the world, we are only as good in the future as the mistakes we make in the past. And in my view, this is a mistake that we should try very hard not to make. And I'm not expecting somebody to write a check today, but what I am asking is that the time is given to give this a thorough investigation, thorough finance costing, so that everybody is aware of exactly where we're at. But keep uppermost in your mind, we are losing the memories of the old geezers. There's myself and Ron Windover that are left. And we lost Ben Irwin this year. Marlis Kirkman Gaines, about 20 years ago, did an awful lot of recording from some of the older people in the area. She's got that. Now I went to, Barb, grab that thing and shut it off, please. Want me to turn it off? Yeah, we went to a little museum off the Magdalen Islands, not as big as what this one is out here. And what they did there is they had people doing like Barb and her crew do, where they do the book work, categorizing everything else. But around this, they would have a picture, say, of a vet. And beside that, there was a write-up, but you pressed a button and it told the history. You would have a picture here of people doing logging. Beside that, this is what the area was built in and whatever. So the people who are there volunteering don't have to have all this history in their noggins. That will be there as a self-explanatory. Then when people are looking for specifics, that's when they go and they say, okay, can I learn more about this? So that's my part of the presentation, and I would like to turn this over now to Barb and Judy and Janice, please.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for your attention.
Thank you.
Questions?
Does anyone have any questions? We'll talk to everybody and then we can have questions
Okay.
after if we need to. We agree? Thank you.
All right, nobody told me this was going to be on the internet. And I'm not much of a speaker, so bear with me. So this year, our group decided to do a museum tour. And if you want to see an amazing little museum, go to Dorset. It is fantastic. Halliburton has a museum. We were at Minden Historical Society. I'm happy to say we do 10 times more work than they do. They meet once a month. We're working all the time. I think being from Galway, first off, we have our, if it was a rainy day and you're at your cottage with 3 little kids, what are you going to do? You've run out of games. You've run out of anything to do with the kids.
Patience.
Patience, yeah. At least in Galway, we'll go into town. We have the artisans place that the kids can go and look at things to buy. We have, thanks to Janice, we have a museum at the Kenmount Heritage, which we support. There's the model train. Girls, help me if I forget something. There's the theater, which also has a museum in there with old posters and movie cameras and all that kind of stuff. What am I missing, Janice? The Austin's Mill, which is interactive, and the park. Trent Lakes means a lot to me because my husband settled here, his family, many years ago. What's in Buckhorn? Carol, you're there with 2 of your little grandchildren, and what are they going to do? I've heard that in most cases, they have to go into Lakefield or Peterborough to do something. I think if we, which I would oversee, I'm not sure I'd do as much as Janet says I'm going to do, but anyhow, with Deer-based school, if it was brought up to scale, that it was fit for the public, which would really be important, and that we could store we've got a lot of stuff stored right now at the fire hall that we could, with the help of council, buy some glass cases. I need Janice's help on this because she's done an amazing job in Kenmount. Just that we could do, say we could do one on trapping in the area. Again, I like Janice's idea that somebody could speak, you could push a button and tell you all about trapping. We could do one on the sugar shack. Yeah, Indigenous people. Like there's all kinds of things that can be done with it if it was fixed up and we had financial help to make it a go. I also thought that when most people come, it's usually in the summer. Maybe you can hire a student to run it for 5 days a week and over a weekend in the summer. I bet you get all kinds of people in to see it. And I think we need something like that in Buckhorn. I mean, if it's a beautiful day, there's lots to see and do. But if it's not, there's really nothing. So anyhow, anything more, girls, that you can think of? And plus we'd like to have offices there, which everybody knows. We'd like to have a Buckhorn. In fact, at one of our workshops in Buckhorn, one of the girls said, oh, if there was something down here, I'd love to volunteer. And I've heard of a few more people that would volunteer to. Now, we're not going to close Galway Hall. We've got 6 people working there and they work very hard. But we need something in Buckhorn. Like I have a lady that traveled up last week who has a place in Cavendish, but she lives in Peterborough. She came up for help because she can't get it there. I know Trent Archives just got a $53,000 grant to scan their newspapers that they have there. They get a lot of financial support. Of course, they charge $50 a year for membership. And they get a lot of university students because Elwood was a professor at Trent. Other than that, we have Fourth Ancestry. They have a lot of information on family trees and that kind of stuff, and a lot of books that have been donated. So they mostly work just in Peterborough, though. I've been there many times, and they work mostly just in Peterborough. So we'd like to see something like that really happen here in Trent Lakes. We've got a lot of people that are interested. A lot of people phone, a lot of people email us. And we've got to keep it going. We've got to keep it strong. I mean, it's our history. And it's important, our history, for everybody. Even if you're not from here, you're here now. And it's important. Okay, thank you.
I think you're making history every day. Thank you very much, Barnaby.
Thanks, Gary. Oh, by the way, Terry, I want to thank you and Dylan for getting the phone fixed and light thing done. That was super.
Got more Dylan than me. Thank you very much, Dylan. Does anyone else like to speak? Go ahead, Janet.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to what Barb was saying. I'm finding from the Lions Club that having people that have had any kind of roots coming into this community are few and far between. We are now a community of many, many more people that have moved in here than the people who are here. There is a thirst from where they came from the area that they're moving into. And it's one thing to talk to somebody who can say, well, this and this and this. It's another thing to actually have a place where people can actually go and look it up. Because we all, we recognize like right now we're in the process of organizing Heritage Day again, which you've all been involved in over the years through council like 15 years ago. That's an outreach where we're trying to educate people coming in from the community that they're coming in from, but also recognizing who they are. What a better segue than to be able to say, yes, and we are building a museum. If you have more information that you would like, if you want to know more about the area that you moved in, then maybe a festival or something that goes on at the BCC, go to the heritage site, learn how it was developed, learn that we were built on the lumbering trade, where our lumber went from here to England to make the ships mess, which kept eventually into the First World War. Learn who we are as Canadian and how many of us started up right here.
Thank you, Janet. Any members of council have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks very much, Janet and Barb. Barb, just a quick question. As far as the Historical Society, how involved is the Galway and Cavendish? Because I mean, they're all part of Trent Lakes. So if it's decided that the Deer Bay School will be utilized as a heritage building, how is Galway and Cavendish going to be involved with that? Because it's Trent Lakes history, and we've talked about, melding, Buckhorn with Galway and Cavendish. We're all part of it, as opposed to being separate. And I know proximity to Kenmount is the most convenient. So how would that work?
Well,
Okay, Barb, if you're going to speak, can we get you back to the microphone, because no one in the virtual gallery can hear you, or it's kind of mumbled. Thank you.
this is
Sorry.
not my first.
Is this your exercise for today?
Okay, John, I think what it is I've already been asked a few times if I'd oversee that at the museum, which I would gladly, and oversee the volunteers that would, because there's people that from Buckhorn that would love to volunteer for the Historical Society. Ideal situation was when we were in Buckhagen. That's ideal. It's close enough to Kenmount. That's not much to travel. Close enough to Buckhorn. It's not much to travel. But that's not going to happen. I don't know if you ever priced that building, but
I did it once.
yeah, so we have to do it in two groups. So as long as I was president, we'd oversee it down there and make sure everything runs right. I have no problem going down once in a while and making sure everything's running. And I've got 4 or 5 girls that would do the same. I'd like to see everything that we've got right now from Buckhorn going down there, which is a lot actually, because we were in Buckhorn for so many years. And still a lot of our focus at Galway is ancestry. We'd like to incorporate that down there, but we have to make sure we have good internet to do it. And I have no problem going down and teaching the girls how to do it. And to me, that's one of the most successful things that we've had since I got involved in 2014. And they didn't have Ancestry at the time. And I kind of talked Rhonda into it. And I put my Ancestry up there for them to use. And it's been phenomenal ever since. There's a lot of people interested in finding. They don't necessarily have to be from here. They can be from anywhere. And they enjoy finding it, just the same as Ron Wendover when I did his family tree during COVID. We went back 22 generations. It was just, it's amazing what I found out. And yeah, sometimes you get good with the bad. Anyhow, he so badly wanted to be a Viking, but I couldn't find it. Anyhow, I'd oversee it, John. That's all I can tell you for now. I don't know how many more years I can stay active. I'm getting up there a bit in years, so, but as long as I can, I will. And I'd like to see it a success. And like I said, if you ever get a chance to see that museum in Dorset, it's so well worth the trip. It's just an amazing little museum. And again, it's mostly run by volunteers, but I do think they have a paid person on there. Well, so does Trent. Archives have a paid person, and most of the historical societies have a paid person. We don't need that. We're all volunteers. But if you were to open a museum, it'd be nice to have college students or university students work for the summer. And I'm sure you'd find there's lots of grants out there to fix that building up. So we just need money to do the finer things to fix it up. So yes, and of course we'd need more if we were operating down there too. So anyhow, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much. Janet, please come to the microphone so people can hear you.
Okay, just kind of a final comment. There are people here with long memories. And one of those memories is when we talked about museums, when I first got on council 15 years ago, that site was mentioned. I opposed it because I felt if we could get something in Buckhorn, that we could get the walk-by traffic and whatever, and that was probably too far out. Times have changed. People are used to getting in their cars now and going, finding out information that they want. There is not a site in Buckhorn. You know, obviously there are certain things that if you could make them happen and snap your fingers, you would go for it. But you would not be able to get a building that has the historical value that one has. But Barb mentioned the ancestry, and that's the thing that's driving people to get in their car and drive to an area and find out. And Barb didn't mention the computer that they have, but they have a computer that when people go in and they say, I think I came from here, that computer will go around until they actually find out if in fact they were in this area. And I think they can actually build on that where it goes further and further. That's something that we would certainly want to have, because people come in, they go to the graveyard, they find a name, they go, they look it up and say, okay, where did we come from? So the ancestry is the thing that's driving people to get in the car and drive that extra 4 or 5 miles to get some information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
I just have a question. Janet, maybe you know this. When was the last student, or when was the last classroom down there at the Deer Bay School?
I don't know, but I know Jeff Cheshire was the last class.
Okay.
And Jeff is
That's out of Buckhorn.
Jeff is 60, pardon?
That would be out of Buckhorn.
No, he went there.
Wow.
That school was
We
operational.
need you at the mic because people on the internet cannot hear you, Janet. Sorry.
I think, in fact, I think it's on the internet. I think there was the last classes went in there till 1960s.
1968, maybe.
Yeah, around 1968 was the last it was used. And then it was really refurbished in the 80s when the group wanted to use it as a safe center.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really viable because, as John would know, that remoteness didn't qualify it as a safe center. You would not take a person in jeopardy and put them into a location that is that far away from services. But it was refurbished, the kitchens were put in, there was a lot of work done on it at that time. So it's not like, for anybody who hasn't seen it, you don't go back to the bare bones. And I think what the mayor was saying was that some of the assessments that were done, that if the attics and things were left alone, that they may not have to have as extensive work done as what has been maybe suggested. The same thing with the windows. Those windows, and Peter, you remarked on that. The windows themselves are historical.
Yeah.
So rather than replace those with something that's airtight, you would just put a unit on the inside of those to protect them. And also you've got to put UV protection when you're going to put archives in, because you cannot have UV coming in the windows and destroying everything. But that's not an expensive thing to do. These are things that one helps the building, the other helps the facility to work.
Yeah.
But no, it's not that long out of use. I think Jeff Cheshire was in the last class.
Okay, that's interesting.
Thank you very
I
much.
think the refurbishment, again, it's on the internet. I think it was, I think it became it went from being a wood facility to the block facility, I think about 1902, I think is what's on the website.
Okay,
So the building as it stands is probably old,
No, it is, yeah, for
older
sure.
than dirt.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you very much.
Any
comments or
other-
questions? Go ahead.
Any other questions?
I'm seeing none. Thank you very much, Janet.
Thank you.
I just, one comment from me is when I was a member of the Parks and Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee, we had a person come in and do a presentation about heritage and all of this sort of things in museums. And Trent Lakes is a way behind the general attitude in Ontario. Like, many people already have a plan to go forward with heritage and saving some, and preserving buildings and structures and documents. And we really don't have a whole plan for that at this point. I mean, we need to do something. I mean, once you lose it forever. So the history of our little area here is very important to most of us. Thank you very much for your presentation. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
If I could just add to that, that's why we've created a heritage committee.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is certainly a recognition that we are behind,
Mhm.
definitely behind in terms of acknowledging, recognizing, and preserving those things of our history, both physical and verbal. So we are starting it. You got to start somewhere.
And you gotta have the building.
That's very true.
Carol, along with heritage is historical too.
Yeah.
Heritage
Yes.
can be land and buildings and that kind of stuff, but historical is all the paperwork that we have and the archival material that we have that points to this area.
Very true.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Are we questioned out for a minute? I think we can move on to item 5 of our agenda, which is staff reports. Dylan, would you like to? Sorry, focus. Can I get a motion to receive the delegation from
Motion to receive?
Deputy Armstrong, and the seconder is Councillor Franzen. Any other conversation? I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much for your delegation, everyone. Okay, now we can move on to staff reports. And Dylan Koch, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So you've heard we just have the one proposal for the usage of the hall. Council agreed to a 6-month basically roll call to see what was out there, what interest was in the community. I did meet with another group at the hall back in September. They obviously were not willing to proceed with their proposal. So council just has the one proposal to consider in front of them. We did have some suggestions to the proposals to on what criteria could be included for it. If council wants, I can read those off of our website. But basically, the path forward now is if council is in principle interested in this proposal, staff can meet with some of the proposal initiators, as well as probably an architect, our building department, fire department, and determine the necessary repairs that would be required, get some concept drawings and some costing done. And then at budget time, we can deliberate on what sort of timing we would like to do this. In the meantime, the building is kept in as safe as conditions we can. The water's turned off there. It's secure, heat's kept at a minimal level, so things aren't going to freeze. So it's not falling apart on us now that we got that roof on it, but so it's really up to council's decision now. It's about, I think, $27,000 a year, just basically at the level we're at. So we're looking for your direction on where you would like to go.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions of Dylan? Go ahead, Deputy
Yeah,
Mayor.
thank you, Mayor Lamson. Dylan, what was in our package is a quote back from 2015 for what would be required for renovations, and understand, Janet, that some of those may not be necessary, like the windows of $10,000. However, at that time, it was $117,000. I am guessing that by today's standards and given cost increases and COVID and everything else, that estimate would be at least doubled. So we're talking probably, $200,000 for renovations. Any insights into sort of present day estimates, Dylan? I know.
Like you said, I would at
Crystal ball.
least double it. I think there was one in the neighborhood of 400 and something. That could very well be outlandish. I would like to meet with, our building department, our fire department. We've got a lot of buildings that were built for one thing and are now being used as another. And I think it's important that we get the occupancy right and do the necessary renovations, abatements, fire separations, all that stuff. And get, proper pricing on that. Current pricing, I've tried to guess some of the market pricing before, and it's been tough in the last couple of years. We had to, go back to the drawing board with the kitchen kind of thing in Galway. So things are really changing quick. So I wouldn't hazard to put a number to it at this stage.
Thank you.
I think, go ahead.
Terry, I know a lot are covered by grants. There is historical grants, heritage grants, Trillium, a lot of costs covered by grants. And I'll throw in another quick idea, the basement for storage, but also maybe a meeting room for nonprofit groups, something like that, so that they don't have to, like, I know we had to pay $15 an hour at Buckhorn for our workshop. But just a small meeting room in the basement for other groups that maybe don't have the money. Just an idea.
Yeah, thank you for the idea. So they're all ideas at this point. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Franzik.
So I think moving forward, we'd need a staff report that would give us some idea on what costing and what concept we would have for that building.
For sure, through you, Terry. Yeah, our first, if council wants to move in that direction, then yes, we would meet with Janet and the Greater Harvey Historical Society, figure out what their needs would be, and then meet with like an architect, fire department, building department, and come up with those figures for council to consider. That's the stage we're at right now. And then when you get those, sorry, excuse me, a bit of a frog there. When those figures come through, it may not be a figure that council is willing to swallow.
Yeah.
It may be a figure you want to spread out over a few years, right? We do have a lot of other facilities that still have attention to, it needs to be done, but that'd be it. So at this stage, I'd be looking, if we want to go that direction, I'd be looking for direction to spend, money on an architect. We probably would pull that from reserve, I would imagine, at this stage, and start moving forward with that.
Go ahead, Councillor Braver.
Through you, Mayor. Dylan, what's that property? Is it a 2-acre?
2 and a bit, I believe. 2 and a bit or 4 and a bit. I'm either thinking it's 2.5 or 4.25. I can't.
It is, okay.
Go ahead.
No, thank you. I was just going to, through you, Mayor Lamson, at one point we were going to get a market value on that property. So just so we have all the information, did we ever get a fair market value assessment for that?
It's a great question. That was a long time ago now.
I know.
I don't think it would be relevant at this time.
Yeah.
No, it's part of the
It
decision.
is, yeah, oh, for sure. I meant the.
Oh,
now
whatever
value.
assessment we
We
got
need
at
the
the
now
time.
value, yeah.
Sorry, through you, Terry.
I
I don't think we did. I think it got stopped before we got that far on it. I know we went through the process of starting a severance, and that was kind of the end. We got the roof done and we wanted to hold on to it.
The roof being a very important thing. It's not degrading anymore. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lamson. I'm not sure we're in a position to make the decision today, but we need to make a decision. We've been carrying this building for what, 4 years now? So $27,000 a year. We have already spent $100,000 to do nothing with an asset that we have, and it's provided no use for us. So I think we do need to make a decision very quickly, probably before the new year or into the new year, because it is just money wasted. And that's what, 0.25% of a tax levy. So it's significant. It won't be popular, but I'll say this. I completely agree that we need a physical presence for a museum, for education, for appreciation, all of those things. So I think we do need a physical presence. I am not convinced that Deer Bay Hall is the place to do that. First of all, we don't have a historical designation for it. I know there's nostalgia for it, and it's been a historical building, but it is truly a heritage building. So that's one piece of the equation. The other one is the cost. Whatever the cost is to renovate this, and you're right, Barb, there are lots of grants available, more for heritage designated buildings than not, but there are grants out there. Nonetheless, it's an expense, and we are facing millions of dollars of facility upgrades that are necessary. So we got to prioritize how we spend our money. So I think we have to look at this from a, not only a heritage and a financial perspective, but we do need to, make the best decision for, the community as a whole. And so again, totally agree. We need a physical presence. You need a home. You need to expand. We need a destination for tourists to come to. But I'm just not sure that Deer Bay Hall is the right place to do that. And so I just offer that up for consideration.
Go ahead, Mark.
Carol, this council meeting room would make a great historical society right there.
Maybe half of it.
Washroom, run into KG, get coffee. All good.
We'll meet in the parking lot, no problem.
Councilor Braber had a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I agree with Deputy Mayor Armstrong's comments in part. I guess where we veer off is, as I look at, I too look at the benefit and the cost. What type of cost recovery could we get from that building if we did choose to move forward with the renovations and whatnot. But I look at it as if we were to dispose of it, and I know Deputy Mayor mentioned that we do need a physical building for it, and she wasn't sure whether that was the location. So I guess my comment to that is, what do we have available if we were to dispose of it, and what do we have available as an alternative building, save and except to build new? And where do we find that property to build new, the location, and how much would that potential new build cost? I would hazard to guess it would be over $1 million. As a conservative guess, and that including whether it be the purchase of new land. I don't know what lands the municipality has available to it right now that may act as a potential site. But I look at, having been in the real estate industry for a few years myself, I look at the building and the renovation costs and how much it would be to bring it up to the speed. It's still an asset. It's still a municipal asset. And if it were to be brought up to speed or up to the standards, the building standards, it is an asset. And if it was decided to, if things weren't working out as far as housing a heritage, it still doesn't preclude us from considering, selling it at that point. And if you were to sell it at that point, you would have a building that's, you know, turnkey, if you will, for somebody else. And it's a let's say a 2 to 4 acre property. I just see the pros to it as far as the potential. I mean, there's a lot of potential to it, and it's a looking at the aerial and going there physically. There's a fantastic area. You know, you could have food truck festivals, rib fests, and you know, a whole host of other activities, and you can center them around heritage, cultural, you know, our indigenous history and whatnot. And that would be a fantastic site that you could have outdoor activities as opposed to a piece of land that's just a building. I look at it more expansively as far as, yes, the building's there. It could be a multi-purpose building, one being the heritage or cultural. And then, you know, if there were any needs in the municipality, whether it be Galway, Cavendish, or the Buckhorn area, if there was a need, we would have space available for that, such as we had in the past. I think that housed the community care and I believe the food bank as well. And I know we have the goodbye room and that type of thing. But I mean, I see that as a good asset for the municipality. Will it cost money to bring it up to code and usable? Yes, it will. But I look at, you know, down the road, if we decide, you know, we know how fast things move. You know, if we decide, yes, now we need a heritage building. Okay, so we're at square one, trying to look for land and then a build, and that's going to be more of an expense for the municipality. So I think a big decision is it's important. Okay, if it's important, how important is it? And we do have an asset that we can deal with. And I agree with Deputy Mayor Armstrong. We have committed basically this term to our infrastructure. And I realize that is a huge cost. But I think we shouldn't be, you know, precluding other areas of interest, for lack of better reference. So I do, me personally, I do support looking at, you know, getting a costing on renovating and bringing it up to speed. And once again, if we make a go of it, you know, last 1, 2, 3 years or however long, or it may be a success. If not, then we still have an option to sell a piece of property that's already been renovated and brought up to code. And it's more saleable. And I did that. There's not much comparables in Buckhorn. There's actually on 36. There's a store that I think it's a small engine store, and it doesn't have the land that the Deer Bay has, and they're asking $549,000 for that. So I don't think we owe anything on Deer Bay right now. It's just the upkeep per year. So again, if we're spending however much it comes in at, there is potential to recoup, you know, some or most of that down the road if things were not to work. So those are mine.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead, Janet.
I know our delegation's done, but these Carol's questions bring other things up to mind. Is it time that we got historical designations on some of these properties?
Definitely, I think it's.
Like maybe that's the
Long
first step,
past due.
is to change the designation. Because by changing the designation on that building, it probably makes it a lot easier to go after grants.
Absolutely.
So maybe Fig 1, Fig 2 would be that designation. I think the other thing, going back 15 years. 15 years ago, things were not as complicated as they are now. You didn't have all of the hoops that you have to go over. The Lakehurst Hall was in decline. So the decision was tear it down, move it, do whatever. And the table said, why don't we build a new one? We spent $1 million on that facility. And it is today almost like it was. All the work's been done year in and year out. The facility is basically like new. The other two community centers, the upgrades have come along as they were necessary, budgeted and whatever. This Lakehurst or this Deer Bay Hall is in fact a community center. It has been used as a community center from the time it was a school. So it already has recognition in the community as being, they used to have their dances there. They had their weddings there. It was functional until about probably into the early 80s when community care and everybody else went in, and then the whole thing changed over. So this is not so much a matter of taking a building and drawing it into the umbrella. It's already a building that's here. We've had it, we own it. It's part of who we are. If you go and say, okay, you put $300,000 into this, we could throw another 300,000 in and get another piece of property and build a new building. But what's historical about that? We've lost the mental connection to what it is we're trying to save in the first place. So I guess to Carol's point, change the designation. Get the historical designation, and that when you go after grants, you can say, this is whatever, whatever. How much money have you got?
Thank you, Janet. Go ahead, Councilor Braber.
Through you, Mayor, just a question on Janet's comment there. And I don't know if you can answer this, Dylan, but if you were to seek historical or heritage designation, does that then affect how you renovate?
I would defer that one to the building department myself.
Okay.
But I'm assuming probably if you had certain designations, probably.
Go ahead, Barb. Barb, I think you have.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, absolutely does. I think
Yeah.
it's up to part of that committee and the overseeing body as to what you can do to a heritage building. That you can't change all the windows. You can't, there's many things you can't do. There's many things you can do, but if you look through other people's heritage buildings, it's very important to make sure you maintain that. Go ahead, Dylan.
Through you, Terry, to maybe Barb, if you were to renovate and you end up changing things like windows and stuff, does that eliminate you from being able to get a heritage designation?
I don't know if it'll eliminate you, but I know it will put an immediate stop because you've already changed the windows. Sort of thing. Is that right, Janice? You had
How do
something?
you preserve the integrity of the building?
Yeah.
I own a heritage building in Kinmount under City of Kawartha Lakes. And they designated certain parts of the building and other parts they didn't. So the parts that they didn't designate, we can change or whatever.
Mhm.
And whatever is needed for maintenance, like fascia and soffit and eavesdropping, stuff like that, they let you do that.
Okay.
Because that's part of preserving the building, right?
Yeah.
But I have never had a problem. I've got loans from them to improve things and I encourage anybody to designate property.
Okay.
For sure, because it's a win-win, right?
Okay.
Everybody wants the same thing. Right?
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yes, to follow up to that, Mayor. I guess I don't want to see things being delayed more so. So if we were able to, I don't want to put everything on hold and then go for the historical designation, which could take a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long. It would be nice to be able to make a decision as council, move on that decision if it was decided that we are going to pursue upgrading it and doing the not the bare minimum, but doing the structural and that, if anything. Reading the reports from 2015, 2018, I mean, they're fairly favorable as far as the state of the building, the structure and
The bones
whatnot.
are good.
The bones are good, yeah. So I just wouldn't want to, I would like to, juggle the two balls, get the heritage designation ball rolling as well as, if we do decide to move forward with upgrading it and not delay that. If you are getting costings as far as costings to renovate, bearing in mind that, and that could be a communication, as you said, Dylan, meeting with the GHHS, and I forget the young lady's name that was mentioned. You have a heritage?
Yeah, Janice.
Janice, sorry. And I mean, Janice would be a wealth of knowledge as far as, what to renovate right away and what to maybe hold off on. And I don't think there'd be any issue with maybe having a consultant from a historical society to come up and do a walkthrough and ask, what we can improve.
I think, John, when you apply for heritage standing, if you say you have a historical society wanting to move into the building, you will get it quicker. And right now, we're still all living on this. So we're good to go.
Go ahead, Janice.
Someone living in Bobcaygeon that was involved in my designation was John Bick. And he was with Heritage Victoria at the time, when it was Heritage Victoria. So he might be a good consultant.
Thank you for this. I think Deputy Mayor Armstrong had a question or
Yeah,
comment.
thank you, Mayor Lamson. As we move forward and look at all of the alternatives, I just want to toss something out, give you a bit more glimmer of hope. I mean, certainly one alternative is we sell the building and land as is, and we use the proceeds from that sale to create a reserve. And that reserve could be earmarked specifically for heritage development in this municipality. And how that money gets used could be in part some of the work that the new Heritage Committee does in looking at, what's the best path forward to preserve some of this, to acknowledge it, et cetera. So that's just another alternative that we could consider, which would still afford some monies to support heritage development, whatever that means, whether it's building, and it could be rent, doesn't have to be owned, et cetera. But that might, in fact, give us more alternatives in terms of moving forward than trying to shoehorn this existing building and its location, which is not ideal. I understand that people drive now, but if you're in Buckhorn and you're on the lock and you're just visiting because you're boating, you're not going to go over there. So as you said, the ideal location is certainly closer to the center of Buckhorn. Anyway, my only point is that is another alternative to consider and gives us some earmarked money for heritage, which could be then used for a variety of things to help expand our footprint and our presence.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Any other comments? I just have one. I think for me, the small amount of effort, not for us, it'll be for Dylan, it'll have the effort, is to look in and communicate with the GHHS and decide what would be needed for the building. I think that's an important little step. I think if you know what we need, and I don't say a grandiose renovation, I think just what exactly is going to be needed to upgrade the building a little bit so that it can be used. And it can be used for many different reasons, not just a heritage society or a museum. It can be used for meetings for other groups. But I think the building needs to be updated slightly, or it's just going to keep deteriorating inside. So I think that's important to get that done, regardless of what we do with that building. I think it's important to see what renovations are needed. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, just a thought on that, Mayor Lamb said. I'm not sure I'm on the same page as you with that, because we're going to spend $30,000 for a consultant to do that. And we're going to find out that it's going to cost us a minimum of $200,000. So I think we've got some base information that we can already work with. I don't think getting additional information is honestly going to sway the decision. We know it's going to be a minimum of $200,000. I don't think anybody would question that. And is that something we want to build into our budget? Yes, we might get a grant for it, but I honestly can't see us putting $200,000 into the budget for 2024 when we sit down and do our look. I don't know that, so I shouldn't, let me withdraw that. We don't know.
Yeah.
But
We don't know what the number is either.
we don't, but I think, I'm not sure that I want to spend $30,000 for a consultant to go in and give us more up-to-date information when I think we've probably got good enough information to move forward, look at the alternatives and make a decision.
Go ahead, Janet.
Okay, just one last comment. When you go looking for grants, and that's going to be a necessary part of this, you've got to have some concrete information. You can't go out and say, we'd like to have a grant to do this, and it might cost this, and it might cost this, and it might cost something else. So that $30,000 is something, whether it's 30 or 20 or whatever it happens to be. That's a necessary part of this process, regardless of whether you decide to sell it, whether you decide to go forward and look for grants. That's money that needs to be spent. Now, when we looked at it, Mayor Lanshead, you talked about people who would come in and look at that attic and say, no, all these things that these people talked about doing may not be necessary.
They may be.
And maybe. So maybe just carte blanche saying to somebody, go out there and give us the, we've gone through this time and time and time again. Maybe it's bringing it closer to house, closer to contractors who live within the area, who can maybe do something, maybe they can't. But my initial statement was, you can do nothing with this other than just put a for sale sign on it, other than finding out exactly what your process is going to be. So Dylan's research into this, in my view, is you can't take that out if you're looking at everything else. You can't build it into your budget if you don't know roughly what it's going to be. You can't go into grants if you don't know roughly what it's going to be. And in terms of putting that money into reserve for the future, I know from council, 4 years old, 4 years is like that. You're already a year into this. So another 3 years won't get you anything if you determine to sell this and put it into something. You put it into something and it sits there. It's not going to grow, because in this day's world, the money you save deteriorates, it doesn't grow. And if you're looking at heritage, you're looking at a heritage building. You're not looking to a new building that somebody puts on the side, heritage and museum. They say, what do you mean heritage and museum? You built this thing last year. So the concept of what you're dealing with, and I go back to the fact that it is one of 4 community centers. And if you look at the money that you spend on Galway and Cavendish and Buckhorn for the usage that they get, you can't justify that. You do it because it is a community access and it supports the community. So every time you do something, whether it's a school, whether it's a rink, whether it's a community center, you don't look at these things as payback. You look at these things as being building blocks of a successful society. And and Carol, you started right off, we are years and years and years behind in those building blocks. We're not going to catch up if we delay the process. Take away something that can or cannot, depending on whether you want to get a heritage designation or not, but take away a potential that's ready to do some renovation, move into. The advantage here is whether it's 2 acres or 4 years. If you look at Upper Canada Village, if you look at Lang Pioneer Village, nobody visualized that as what they are today. We have the opportunity to move a log house in there. That's the step one. So as you build onto this, the ideas will come, the money will come, people will donate. So look 20 years from now as to what that 4 acres may look like. And I guarantee you, it won't like what it is today, because we don't have the land. If we had a big park in Buckhorn that we could carve out a chunk and it had an old house, but when Tilly's house was for sale and we went through that, and I think you were part of that, right in the middle of Buckhorn. And we took a look at that, and the idea at the time was, if you did what has to be done with this thing, you're into $1 million. We took a look at the original Stockdale property. We went through that house. Again, you don't go through any of these buildings and not try to do what you're going to do and not deal with this kind of money. So in my view, the important question here, do we value our history and our heritage enough to move forward with this? Or do we value it in principle only and in lip service, so that we can say to the community, yes, we considered this, Or do we actually put our money where our mouth is and move forward and build something that will embrace what everybody else has already done? That's it, I'm gone.
Thank you. This is an important decision, I think,
Yeah.
for our own heritage in this community.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got volunteers that would like to be part of this, I'm sure,
Yeah.
that are from all areas of our municipality. Barb, go ahead.
Well, Terry, as you know, we just about lost the historical census, ought to be in 2015.
Yes.
If it wasn't for City of Kawartha Lakes and the people in Kenmount getting us a place to operate, we would have shut the doors. We're thrilled to get into Galway Hall. We've got so many more volunteers now. There's nothing saying we'll have this in 5 years. Right now, all our volunteers, and we're all getting older, would be more than willing to step in and help set this up and do whatever's. And we've got volunteers in Buckhorn. I don't know if they'd still be volunteers in 5 years.
That's
So
one thing we don't know.
I'm just saying, right now, we're there for you if that's what you want.
Thank you. Was that a question in behind there?
I'm just curious, we've already basically thrown 100,000 away. So time is of the essence, I think the main thing is to basically preserve the integrity of the building, because that's gonna have to be done whether we move it into historical and heritage or if we sell it. It's just gonna raise the cost of what you can sell it for, right, the fair market value. But to sit and wait to make decisions for another year, you're just throwing away another 100,000 when the money could have been used to put towards whatever.
Yeah, it's about 27,000, I think, a year to look after it. But
And
I think it's
love
important to do
John's
something
idea.
with it. You need to do something. Any other
Like having
comments?
different
Questions?
things along, like in the parking lot, vendors, medieval times in the parking lot.
Yeah, there's
Oh.
there's unlimited opportunities. We know that. It's just what do we want to move forward on? And for me, it would be just take a little bit of time and have a look at it, see what is needed. And then I don't say going out and spending $50,000 or $70,000, just have a look at what's needed and then bring a little report back to council, just so that we have a better idea of what the financial implications in 2023 are. I don't expect this to be in a 2024 budget. I'm hoping it would be, but I don't expect it would be. We would have to look at getting the heritage designation changed. We would look at grants. We're looking at, there's a lot of things to look at before I'm spending $200,000 or $300,000 or willing to cooperate with spending $200,000 or $300,000 on renovating a building that we may not be able to do what you need. I mean, you're the only delegation that's came forward about this building. So, I think we seriously have to look at that. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Braybrooke.
I think Councillor Franson, sorry, has had his hand up for a
Go
while.
ahead, John can go ahead. I'll
No, go
follow
ahead.
John. I just think it's important to do a heritage center in a heritage building. I don't believe that we should do a new build. I think a new build would cost us way more money than renovating that center. But I think we do have to take baby steps. We have a lot on our plate right now. And, but I would like to see us progress on this.
Go ahead, Councillor Braybrooke.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. Now, me not being on council when the rink was built in Buckhorn, was that, were there local trades and people that donated their time and to build that, or was that a complete?
Through you, Terry, I don't know, maybe
I think
Donna and Janet would probably answer that
Yeah.
question better than I would. I wasn't here when it was built, so.
I think, go ahead, Janet.
Look at the plaque on the wall outside the boardroom. And I think there's probably 24. The electric was given, the cement, yeah, it was almost 100% donated. What wasn't donated was done at cost.
Yeah,
And we fundraised.
we also got grants.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah, so there is opportunities to help fund it. We're not talking about spending a whole bunch of money right
Yeah.
now. We're talking about, let's see what we need to move to the future. I think it's important to know what you need. before you can make any decisions on spending $1, $2, $3, $400,000 to upgrade a building and a property.
Yeah.
I think we kind of need to know what direction we want to go in, and meeting with the Greater Harvard Historical Society, which is the only people that have expressed interest in this building right now, to see what is needed, and then we'll know whether we can do that or not. And by then, we might even be able to find out if we can get grants. We might change the designation. Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you, and through you. A suggestion could be to bring this, we have a budget meeting on the 28th of November. We could consider this because obviously this late in the year, there isn't budget for any kind of consultants. We don't have that funding. So council could consider at that time whether the 2024 budget could include an amount for a consultant for this work. Just a consideration, because yeah, there isn't budget funding necessarily right now if you were to direct Dylan to proceed.
Yeah, for me, I don't think we need a great big amount of money. We have studies that have been done on the building. Some of the physical studies are relevant at this time. The dollar value may be changed, but I think some of the studies on what would need to be changed, and some of the things that we don't want to change, like I would not support taking all those big windows out. You've refurbished them, you cover them so they're no longer an issue with the lead paint that's in there, which is a simple process to do. These are things that have been done all over Ontario. And then if anybody's going to move in there, you need to do something on the inside of those windows to make them more energy efficient. Those are simple things to do. They're not expensive. We would need to find that money in a budget. So that would be in the future. Any other comments or questions? I think we need to decide what we're going to do. Anybody willing to even stab at a motion? Not a chance.
Trent Baker, I'll do it.
Well,
I think we do have to bring it forward at budget time.
Mhm.
I agree with the recommendation of Donna.
okay.
And at that time, we could see if there's money available to do a study or to get some drawings made, even if it's just a preliminary drawing at first, doesn't have to be in detail.
Yeah. In the meantime, maybe Dylan could meet with the Greater Harvest, see what we might be needing, because we don't know what we're going to need yet.
Yep.
If we can do that, and then we'll maybe have those ideas for budget time. I don't mean a dollar value. If we know what is needed, we can kind of get close to a budget item. I think just meeting just to see what the renovations would need to be to accommodate that, just to make sure that we're moving ahead in the right direction. I don't want to renovate the whole building and then say, oh, geez, that doesn't work for any historical society or any documents. Or let's make sure we know what we need before we step ahead and spend a bunch of money. I don't expect to spend a lot of money. Go ahead, Deputy Armstrong.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lamson. I think at some point in time, we as council will need to decide whether we are keeping it or selling it.
Mhm.
And I'm fine if we want more information to do that. I personally think we have enough, but that's not looking like it's the majority view, which is fine. But I just want to bring us back to the fact that that's the decision we as council need to make. Because if we don't, then we continue to spend money on this for no payback. And I appreciate, Janet, your point about you don't always get payback for things, but there is nothing to justify maintaining an empty building. So I'm not sure when we make that decision. But I just want to tee that up that we need to. And it's sounding like we're not going to be able to do that at the budget meeting, because that's really just to decide whether or not we want a consultant for next year. That puts it off for another year. So I don't know if we have the cart before the horse here. I'm just not sure. I think we're kicking the can down the road a little bit by not dealing with the issue of what do we want to do with this building fundamentally going forward.
Go ahead, Councillor Franz.
Yeah, I believe that we should be keeping the building. I'd be willing to make that a motion. Under no scenario can I see selling that property and building.
Councillor Braybrook?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Councillor Franz and as well as Deputy Mayor Armstrong, as far as we have to make a decision whether we're keeping it or not. I don't know if we could build into a motion, have a vote, build into a motion that, if the motion is to keep it, it can be subject on feedback from, the quotes or the costings, speaking with the GHHS. And I hearken back to, if we're talking about money, I mean, obviously that's, and I'm cognizant of that as well. I pay taxes here, and I always reflect on, would I be in support of it and that sort of thing. And I look, how could we recover the cost? And that's where I say it's an asset. It's still an asset that we have, a tangible asset on a fantastic piece of property. And it is, everything in Trent Lakes is, if it's not in Buckhorn or concentrated in Galway where they have Kinmount, everything's a travel, everything. So I think the proximity there with the property and the type of property is, it's close enough to the main downtown core of Buckhorn. People go to the dump every day. It's just another kilometer down the road from the dump. And if there's signage and whatnot, people are always looking for things to do. And that's part of the economic development. Rachel saying that, obviously tourism is our golden key and that type of thing. But I look at the money and I look at it, if it ends up being a dud after you've renovated and everything, and it just looks like it's just more of a ball and chain around the municipality's neck, then at that point, it's still an asset. And they always say real estate, it goes through its ebbs and flows, but it always increases. You may have dips and drops, but real estate is existing real estate that we can potentially renovate using the services from our trades within the municipality, that could cut down on the costs. And I just fear if we do sell it and it goes into a reserve, whether it be a heritage reserve or a cultural reserve, that just gets watered down and picked at and borrow from and that sort of thing. I just fear that it would just wash out, and then any consideration for any future heritage locations or builds would be, we'd be having the same conversation, but now instead of talking about under 500,000, now we're talking $1 million plus. So.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much. With respect to your motion, Councillor Franzen,
Yeah.
I am pushing us to make a decision. I'm not sure we should do that today. I wonder if we should schedule that for our November, whatever it is, 7 and 14, 21st meeting, unless everybody here is prepared to make that decision today. But I'm almost wondering if we should defer that decision, bring it to 2 weeks from now.
And I'd like to speak on that. I agree with Deputy Mayor Armstrong. I think the general public should be aware of whatever motions we bring forward. They may not be tuned into this meeting, but they may be tuned into our council meeting. It's part of our agenda package that goes out to quite a few different organizations and people. So I would agree on deferring that decision till council.
So maybe as a suggestion, it's a notice of motion if you wanted to bring that forward for our next meeting.
Yeah.
Might be a procedural, looking at the clerk to see if I'm out of order here, but that might be a procedural way to move it to that next meeting.
I think Hurricane would like to say something. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Terry, to me, like I've listened to all this and I appreciate the cost value and whatnot's involved. But for me, to do this Deer-based school, it's more for the community. It's more for the people to have something else to do in Buckhorn. It's more to get groups of people in there, like John said, which is a super idea. It's more of a community asset than necessarily dollar and cents.
Yeah, you look at what the Lang Pioneer Village has morphed into. It's thousands and tens of thousands of people a year use that facility. And they're from all over. There's weddings, there's groups from all
Yeah.
over the province that come there and enjoy
We
that
start with
facility.
one building.
Yeah, and it started with a very unique idea, which we have the opportunity to embark on that road with a unique idea.
Settlers Village in Bob Cajun,
Yeah,
has the same thing.
Yeah. I think, Janet, you have one more
Well,
comment?
just
and
the,
then we're-
just the access to Tekasi Ranch.
Mhm.
Because you could offer like what he's interested in doing there is having the Heritage Center as the sort of the hub as heritage walks. And then supply all of the trails that he has through there in partnership with that building. So that it can actually be sort of the nucleus of that trail section that's already being developed. I sit here and I look at that plaque. And in 1866, 2 of my great-great-grandfathers are on that plaque. Now you take a look at histories and areas. That's McKinty and that's Hall. McKinty's are no longer, Halls are still out and about. But there are the Barb families, there are the Stockdale families, there are those original families who still have roots in this community. And that preservation is something that their grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, people who move into the area. It's a community center, but it's also an information center. Now in Galway, because they have the Galway Community Historical Center in there, they're branched out, they're operating most of these. But most of our community centers are not doing very much on heritage. They're operating on the day-to-day, whatever comes up. This is a much different animal. It needs to be thought of more in terms of a school or university. Trent University came out and looked at the land just across from that and did a lot of studies on that land about 10, 12 years ago because it's never been disturbed. And they drove drill holes down to determine how much activity has taken place there over the hundreds and hundreds of years. So Trent University could very well be interested in that because that pretty much backs on to Crown land. Like the access that that area has from a scientific standpoint is really quite, it's quite broad if we embrace and bring the Trents, bring the Sir Sanfords in with what some of the to marry with it as well.
And I think that relationship's important for grant funding as well. I mean, there's opportunities there. Okay, are we going to make a motion today or are we going to defer?
No, I'll defer it to, if staff would like me to do a notice of motion, I'll do a notice of motion.
I'm just wondering if we can embark on some steps between Dillon and the Greater Harbor Historical Society, because if we don't start something, we'll never get going here. I don't know if you can do that without a motion or direction, I think just to meet together to see kind of what is needed. I think those are, yeah.
I think we're talking 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think we wait for council to make a decision before we deploy resources on something that, may or may not be a path forward.
You're going to defer? We'll defer. If we defer a decision, I think we need that as a motion, don't we? Yep, we need a motion to defer a decision for 2 weeks.
Okay.
You second that motion?
Yes.
Okay. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We defer a decision for 2 weeks. Okay. Let's move on to, I'm lost from my page now. Oh, we need to go to section 6 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming bylaw. Anyone prepared to make that motion? The Councillor Franzen for a mover, Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on now to item 7 of our agenda, which is adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? See Councillor Cadigan for a mover. Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the
I would like
delegation.
to thank